everyone. It's Brittany Jones Cooper coming to you at home with Build at Home. Today, I'm really excited to be chatting with Hind Hassan, who's a correspondent for Vice News. How you doing, Hind?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Before we jump in, I want to remind our viewers that as of today, 202 million school meals have been missed due to school closures. There is a campaign called No Kid Hungry that's helping to feed these communities. So you can visit nokidhungry.org if you're looking for ways to help or donate. So Hind, let's jump right in. Where are you right now? What's your situation? What's going on?
I'm in London. We're under lockdown. The government is dealing with a lot. There's a lot of confusion about what lockdown actually means because a lot of people are still going to work. There's been lots of pictures on social media of people boarding the underground and the tube and how packed it is. So that's the situation of the capital at the moment, which is the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in the UK.
Yeah, I did see
that. Under lockdown.
That really full train, subway train, and I was like, oh, that's not a good situation.
Yeah, I mean, the streets are definitely quieter. So where I am, I'm quite high up, so I can see the roads where all the cars are coming and the people where they're normally walking past, and it is a lot quieter. But I guess there's not been any explicit commands as to which people should go into work and who shouldn't. And so if your employer is saying, no, you need to come into the office for your employment, people are doing that. And so there's now a call for the government to be stronger in terms of their language as to what employment, what jobs should keep going during this outbreak and which ones shouldn't.
Yeah, I do find in this situation that they just have to be as explicit as possible, just tell people to stay inside or else they won't stay inside. So how long have you been self-distancing or social distancing?
So I haven't been out since the government officially said, stay in your home. But before then, the only reason I did leave at all was to do reporting. But even at that point, we were, socially distancing from other people, wiping kit down, taking a lot of precautions. And the story that we were doing was on coronavirus as well. But apart from that, I've just been spending time at home. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing with journalists, because this needs to be reported on, but we also don't want to be part of the problem, and we also need to take care of ourselves and other people. And so that's what Vice is doing. I think we're trying to do as much as we can remotely and reassessing how we do things and trying to be not only careful for ourselves, but also the people that we have in our reports.
That's so important. I'm happy that you're able to work from home. Just for yourself, what have you been doing to stay busy? Because I would imagine somebody who's on the road as much as you, it must be difficult to be confined to an apartment.
It is a strange feeling, and it's pretty difficult to deal with because you are constantly used to being outside, talking to people, meeting people, being in very different circumstances. And before these lockdowns started happening, we were in Iraq and in the middle of a protest and, covering the civil unrest that's taking place there. So to go from that to then not really traveling or not moving around at all is quite hard. So at the moment, we're just keeping on top of reporting. Watching the news, seeing what's happening. We're still pitching. We're still working on stories. We still have plans to do things. We're working in a different way. We're trying to film remotely. We're still putting forward ideas. And then on top of that, I think I'm doing what everyone else is doing, which is trying to do workouts from home, which isn't working. I don't have JLo's abs yet, so.
I know. Where are my abs? I've been doing yoga for like 4 days. They're not here.
Me too. It's a scam.
It's a scam. This is what we're learning during this hibernation time. You mentioned going to Iraq, and I saw that your story that you shot there about the protests sort of going underground for a while because of the coronavirus. So how have you seen it impact the protesters?
Had a huge impact. There's a lot of things that didn't stop the protesters from going to Tahrir Square or protesting across the country. They've been shot at and they've been killed, and there's been a lot of human rights violations that have taken place. Over 600 people have been killed, and they still took to the streets and they were still protesting. But this coronavirus is the first time that they've actually, as a result of coronavirus, cleared the square. But they say that they will be back. And there's been lots of videos on social media circulating of protesters holding banners saying that they're just doing this for the safety of Iraq right now, but that they will return to the square. And I believe it because, since October, they've tried so hard to suppress this movement and they've not been able to. So I'm sure once this outbreak, hopefully ends, we don't know when that will be, but hopefully when it does, the young people of Iraq, I'm sure, will be back on the streets protesting.
Yeah, so you're not really concerned about the momentum being stopped. You still think that they will continue as much as they can.
I mean, it is a concern. It is a concern. I'm sure all the Iraqi protesters will be concerned about that. And there's no doubt that, they had a momentum and this could potentially disrupt that. But there's been numerous points during the protest where people have believed that the momentum had been disrupted. There were lots of things that happened. For example, after the killing of Qasem Soleimani took place, and then the attack on the protesters by militia groups and gangs, there was a belief that this could be the end of the protest movement, and it wasn't, and it came back stronger. And so I guess we just don't know. We have to wait and see what happens. But if the previous months are anything to go by, there's a big chance that they could still come back in strength.
Yeah. And tell me what countries in the region you report on specifically, because I know I've seen stories you file from different places.
Everywhere. I've tried counting the number of countries that we've been to. I do a lot of Europe because obviously we're based in London, so we do travel out to Europe. For example, we did the Yellow Vest movement, covered that quite a bit over a period of 2 years because it started in December 2018 and then into 2019. Been to a lot of different Eastern European countries, but then I do also have a passion for the Middle East. I'm originally from Iraq. I was born in Iraq. I left when I was 3 years old. And so I do have an interest in that region. And we've reported from Iraq, Lebanon, Sudan, Syria, a lot of places.
Yeah. And I saw that you speak Arabic?
Yeah. So how I speak Iraqi dialect.
So how has that impacted your reporting in the region as far as people trusting you? Are you getting access? Has that just been something that really helps you report better?
Yeah, it's really useful. So just to explain, Arabic has many, many different dialects in lots of different countries. And sometimes one dialect is very difficult to understand for someone who speaks another dialect. The standard Arabic is Fusha, which is classical Arabic. And if you live in the Middle East, you tend to understand that because that's what newsreaders use, that's what politicians use. But because I didn't grow up in Iraq, the Arabic that I know is a local dialect. And even then, sometimes it can be a little bit broken, but I get by and it sounds very, very Iraqi. So when I go to Iraq and I open my mouth, they know straight away that I'm a native, that I'm from Iraq or I have Iraqi parents. And it really does help you because even though, when we go and report from a lot of different countries, we try our best to tell the human side of stories and, immersive, character-driven reports, which is what Vice is all about. But when you understand what that woman is saying who's lost her son, like in the Iraq report, when you can, respond while she's talking to you and, off camera, you can talk to her about her experiences and it does make a huge difference. We're very lucky though, in a lot of regions that we go to, we don't speak the language. We work with incredible local journalists and they are amazing. They're the center of everything that we do, these local journalists that we work with. And they're also very good at doing that and creating those connections.
Absolutely. And I watched the premiere of Vice. It's coming out on Sunday, but I got to see the first episode last night, where you are having some really important conversations in Syria. So tell us a little bit about that story and what viewers can expect to see.
Right. I mean, what did you think of it?
It's really powerful. You sort of forget about the women sometimes. And then you sort of have to consider their involvement in what's happening. And I just hadn't really thought about it before watching.
Right. So that's what this report basically is all about. So, just about a year ago, ISIS lost all of its territorial control. And there were a lot of world leaders, politicians who came out and said ISIS is being defeated in Syria. In fact, Donald Trump said it a number of times. And the reality is that they have been defeated in terms of their territory. They can no longer, say this area is our capital. But they still exist. They're still there. There are sleeper cells. There are still attacks that take place. And then on top of that, what we look into is the ideology and how is the ideology being kept alive. Now, after the defeat of ISIS in Baghouz, which was where the final battle took place, a lot of people, a lot of the ISIS families, the wives of ISIS men and their children were taken to various camps around northeastern Syria, one of them being El Hol camp. And there are also ISIS families that were there before the final battle of Baghouz. And that's where we go. So we go to El Hol and we have a look at what is happening there, what's happening in terms of the ideology, in terms of the women. Not everyone there is an ISIS member or somebody who was married to an ISIS man. There are a lot of IDPs, internally displaced people, or refugees, people that have come over from Iraq who are fleeing, militia attacks or this as well. And they're all living in this massive camp where around 65,000 people are staying.
Wow.
And then we focus very specifically on the foreign section of the camp, where there are, again, thousands of women and children. I mean, children make up more than half of them. There are loads of different nationalities. We saw French, Australians, Chechens, Russians. There are lots of different nationalities there, and seeing what is happening. Have the women that went to Syria to join ISIS rejected the ideology, or are they still teaching their children the ideology?
Which is so important. And I know a lot of people misunderstand the region often. They always sort of wonder, like, how are those things going to impact us? But when you see a story like this and how they continue the ideology, you see that it does impact all of us.
Right, that's what came across to me from going there and speaking to people. So ISIS is a murderous cult. It beheaded people. It has an evil ideology. So it's completely understandable that public opinion in most countries is, if you travel to Syria and you went to join ISIS, you should stay there because we don't want you back anymore. That's completely understandable. But what the Kurdish authorities are saying, what nearly every single Kurdish person in that region and Arab that we spoke to is saying, is that they're saying, we can't deal with this problem alone. There are thousands of people who still believe in the ISIS ideology in the camps and in the prisons. And we don't have enough people to ensure the security of these places. And if ISIS still exists in terms of their sleeper cells, and they are trying to, reconsolidate, if ISIS are trying to consolidate again, trying to build up power, weapons, money, whatever it's doing, if it manages to do that at some point, and there's any form of instability in the region and it takes advantage of it, the first place it's going to target are these camps and the prisons. And so what the Kurdish authorities are saying is it's not just our problem, it's the international community's problem as well, because if ISIS manages to regroup at any point, we've seen previously that their ideology is not an internal one that keeps it within the Syrian borders. They target people all over the world.
Wow. That is, it's scary stuff, honestly. And, your boots on the ground, kind of front lines out there. What is your relationship with that? Do you get afraid, or are you an adrenaline junkie? What sort of continues to fuel you to go into these places?
The human stories, honestly, and I think this is the same with the entire teams, all the teams that I work with. And even when we went into Syria this time, the people that there's a team of us. And just to say, there's Adam Desiderio, Emel Gatetfi, Daniel Hollis, and then also local journalists that we work with who prefer not to be named. And everybody has a real human emotion to everybody that we speak to. And you do make connections. And the most difficult part is when you go there and you speak to these people, and you'll see when you watch the documentary that there are some characters in there, some really touching people that we speak to, and especially the young children. And it's difficult to make those connections and then see it end and then leave, and you continue to live your very privileged life, and they continue to live their life. And I guess going to these places and hearing people's stories and then allowing those stories to be told on some level is, I think, what drives me and certainly all the people that I've worked with at Vice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what else can you tease us as far as stories that we can expect in this upcoming season that you worked on?
So there's a lot of different stories that are taking place in this. I don't want to reveal too much, but I do know I'm working on some currently that are coming later on in the series. Mm-hmm. But in the first few episodes, there are some lighter stories that I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy. I don't really want to reveal too much, but one of them's in Dagestan. There's also some great political stories and current situations as well that have taken place in India. So reporting from there, I just say tune in, because this is about as Vice as it gets.
And you know what? People have a ton of time to tune in. So it's like the perfect time to get caught up on all the stories that you've been too busy to pay attention to. That's how I've been handling it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that people will tune in and watch this. You know, there's an opportunity for them to watch it given the current situation, but then also I'm hoping that this is something that people will be interested in. It's a good diversion, I guess, with all of the coronavirus news, which is very, very important. But this at least reminds us of all the things that are taking place in the world at the moment.
Absolutely. So everybody can check out the new season of Vice. It premieres on Sunday, March 29th, right?
Yep, it premieres this Sunday, March the 29th at 8 ET. I'm hoping people will tune in and watch.
Awesome. Thank you, Hind, so much for joining us. And I'll see you next time, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.